The end of the 70-day mourning period is fast approaching. Soon Tut will be buried. Tutankhamun is still awaiting news from a suspicious Hittite king. She has pinned her hopes on the arrival of a prince to claim the throne as her consort.
Finally, the Hittites are convinced that the offer is genuine, and they dispatch a prince to Egypt to marry the queen. But he dies mysteriously along the way, and the whole thing blows up into a diplomatic fiasco.
The Hittites blame the Egyptians for the prince's death. Tutankhamun's gamble to secure a Hittite husband is a spectacular failure.
The Hittite king orders a military attack on Egyptian territory in revenge. So instead of having a royal wedding and a peace treaty, you end up with a military fiasco, diplomatic fiasco, and poor Tutankhamun still doesn't have a husband.
In one move, she's plunged Egypt into further crisis. And what's more, unwittingly decided the race for the throne.
Throughout this whole crisis, we believe that Horemheb is on the ground somewhere on the Egyptian-Hittite border here in Syria, defending the Egyptian frontier against a Hittite counterattack. And this keeps him busy and prevents him from coming home until after the funeral.
Now, only Tut's chamberlain, Ai, remains.
At this point, it's game over for Queen Tutankhamun. She's not going to get a husband. But for Ai, the game may only just be beginning.
A pharaoh was never buried alone. Ai must lay Tut to rest with the possessions and religious artifacts he needs to guide him to the next world. It must be done properly. Yet research 4,000 kilometers away suggests that these preparations too were a curious affair. Here at the Griffith Institute in Oxford, England, Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves examines the original photographs of Tut's treasures as Howard Carter found them in 1922. Reeves wants to find out how many of the treasures, like the sarcophagus, have been recycled.
I thought I knew the tomb of Tutankhamun very well, but as I kept looking again and again at the detail of it, I started to see it in a completely different light.
Reeves examines the many pieces of jewellery found in the tomb. He discovers that Tut's name, inscribed in oval cartouches, appears to replace another, and the accompanying titles are not his either.
These first two hieroglyphs are the epithet Heka Nefer, good ruler. Heka Nefer. It never seems to be an epithet which is used by Tutankhamun himself. The epithets are those of other people, of Akhenaten, in fact.
Akhenaten, Tut's father and infamous heretic. He abandoned the worship of the traditional gods in favor of one, crushing the power of the priests.
The conclusion that one reaches is that a lot of this jewellery was made for someone else and only later inscribed at the time of Tutankhamun's burial.
Reeves examines Tut's most iconic treasures. Tutankhamun's outer coffin has an odd detail.
It has these extraordinary lappets added at the front in a braided effect.
This unique headdress was sported by only one man, Akhenaten. And Reeves finds evidence of changed cartouches on the second coffin. But his most dramatic discovery concerns Tut's iconic death mask. Reeves is intrigued by a line of prominent solder.
Of course, this might be a manufacturing feature. This is how they produce these things, but I think not.
Then he examines what the mask is made of.
The inlays of the wig are of blue glass, but the inlays of the mask are of lapis lazuli. This suggests to me an alteration, an updating of the mask.
This leads him to an astonishing conclusion.
I think we can be fairly sure that this is the face of Tutankhamun. However, having said that, I don't think that the mask itself was made for Tutankhamun.
As he painstakingly examines and catalogues, Reeves is surprised to find a female presence in this man's tomb. Some of the statues have a definite feminine shape. And these stone stoppers, finely carved in the form of a pharaoh's head, also have a female quality to them. They sit atop miniature gold coffins holding Tut's embalmed internal organs. But was this key funerary equipment made for him? Reeves examines them for clues. He can find nothing on the outside, but the inside is revealing.
Changes in the text on the inside have been done far less carefully, and the name of the original owner can still be discerned. And this person was in fact Nefertiti, as co-regent of Akhenaten.
Nefertiti, the iconic queen of ancient Egypt. The tomb, it turns out, contained not simply the treasures of Tutankhamun, but those of his father and possibly stepmother. If I was anxious to rush through Tut's burial, recycling meant he could do it quickly. But there were massive political reasons for this too. The story begins in 1907. Archaeologists digging in the Valley of the Kings discover tomb KV-55. It appears to be a cache of royal human remains and burial equipment. Nicholas Reeves believes these royal remains were brought here from Amarna around the time of Tut's death.
This stuff was simply brought to the Valley of the Kings, piled up in a heap. What was needed for the burial of Tutankhamun was taken out, and what was left was redivided out amongst the original owners.
It's as if the priests not only wanted to prepare King Tut for his journey into the next life, they wanted to throw into that mix anything that reminded them of the Amarna period. Put it in the tomb, lock the door, and hope it never sees the light of day again.
Putting all the evidence together, Reeves estimates the scale of the reuse and recycling.
I wouldn't be surprised if as much as 80% of the core burial equipment was simply taken over from previous owners. It could even be higher.
If he's right, 8 out of 10 treasures known as King Tut's are in fact other people's.